Encryption Game and combining games together. We'll just look at a few highlights of this, and that is the combining the games here and touch sensing. So when I sense something, something else could happen. Also, the arrow keys to move a sprite. Those are what's going to be highlighted in this video. So let's play by pushing the green flag. Note that if I move my duck and I push the green flag, it will initialize that to a location. So first I'm going to move around here a little bit. Let's see what happens when I touch this blue. It makes a sound and disappears, and change the score by 1. Also, if I click the exit with my mouse, it switches to another background. So I will push the green flag, initialize everything back to the start, and now I can see once again that it says press B for Baki game, M for Moi game, R for Rodriguez game, arrows to move start, click exit. We've done these. We need to look at pressing B. Now if I press the B, I move here. If I press an M, if I press an R. Anytime I can press the B, the M, the R, the B, the M, the B. I can move around in my game. Let's take a look at how that code works. So let's click the background here under Stage and go to Backdrops. Under Backdrops, we have 5 backdrops because we have 3 games, a start and an end screen. There's my start. Each of the games I just enlarged. I used images from the web to give me the illusion of whatever I would like there, and you can stretch them large or small, remembering that everything has to be converted. These are all to vector, not bit. Allowed me to stretch them. Now on the code part of the background, we have when the flag is clicked, it will broadcast start. That could be a trigger for anything you'd like. I have start triggering various things in this made-up game. Also, I have my score initialized to 0, and I switched to the start background. Now, it might already be on the start background, but occasionally it'll be somewhere else, like when you're running the game over and over, you can reset anytime you like, and it will set it back. Now, on that menu, it also said B, M, and R for different games, and we can see B switch to background of Baki, and broadcast Baki game to allow initialization of variables in the same way that you did with the start. You can also move things back to a certain location, make them visible or invisible. And I've done that with each of these. When you do end, you switch to the end background and wait. Now in this case, I've used these just to see if there's a difference in the and wait, and I haven't noticed any big difference in the and wait, except on the Rodriguez. The game seems to be slower, but it could be the way I've coded it otherwise. So you can play around with the and wait here on the switching background and see if it makes a difference for you. Let's take a look at the arrow keys to move the sprite. Under the duck sprite, in my case that's what I'm using, is the duck. You can see it here and here. I have done when arrow key is pressed. When you do the up arrow, it changes the Y. So we're looking at the coordinate system here. Your Y is up and down, so we change a positive value and a negative value. This could be anything. It could be 20, 30, 50, 1, 2, whatever you'd like to move by. I did my left and right arrow by 10 and negative 10 because the X is left and right on the quadrant system. To code these, we go to events and we'll see when space key is pressed, and you can go down and select letters, you can select left arrows, you can do any key, you can also do numbers, whatever you select there. Now I'm going to throw this away because I've already coded it. The change by is under motion. And I've got a move 10 steps, which is not what I'm looking for. We've got set 2, that would move something else. The change by, we've got change by 10 here and here, so we have to note if we're X or Y. Just drag those over and you'd be able to do your changes and move a sprite around. Another thing we see under the duck is that when he received the start, that made him jump back and initialize to this location. This location is when you're setting up your game. As your duck moves around, you'll see that that changes. For example, once I press the start flag, and if I move my duck here, watch this, right here, let's see if I can get another one. And here, I've got the go to, and I've also got a glide to. A glide to would make it less jumpy. So I'll move my duck here. I clicked over, and let's say that I have my duck here, and I throw this away, and instead I glide 1 second. That means it allows me to take a little bit of time. So when I move my duck, just clicking over there, if I click the flag, he glides instead of jumps. So we can change things like that. This one was when I received quack place sound. That was when I touched, and then I glide back. So I can call this start multiple times. Under the button is where I saw that glide. Let's take a quick look at that. That's this button here. Now, even though it says button, it's truly a sprite, which means it can sense touch, motion, it can move around. I could make my button so that I activate that just like I did the duck with the arrow screens, arrow keys. Here we go. When the flag is pressed, how do I initialize this button? The first thing I do, let's take a look. We stop and see it's gone right now. If I push the flag, it comes back and switches to blue costume. It shows and it waits until it's touching the duck. So I have touched my flag. That makes my duck active. Bring it over. And that calls the duck code and calls this code. When it's touching the duck, it waited until it touched the duck. It could change the score by 1. And then it broadcast the start, which got the duck back to the start location. It broadcast quack, which made the noise, said quack, and hides as well. So we had the start affected the duck and the quack affected the duck. Just bringing us back to the duck then. Start and quack. Played that sound until done. Sometimes a sound or something won't be visible, so I wanted to make a quacking sound here, but the quacking sound was not visible because a button doesn't make a quacking sound. Under the sounds, we see it can make a popping sound, but it can't make a quacking sound. So if I wanted to, if it's touching the duck, I could also make a popping sound and then also a quacking sound. I just wanted to do the quacking sound. So I sent that broadcast and let the duck quack. You can go back and forth. You just have to do things like almost like passing a ball back and forth. You can pass it to anybody and they'll catch it. Any sprite can do the action. Some other things we want to look at are how things are showing and disappearing. Let's look at one of these games. We'll look at the B game for Baki. Make sure I'm on my start and switch to B. Now the ones I'm going to look at here, the sprites I have are the duck, the here, and I have the eagle as well. So on this Pigpen cipher, which is something, of course, that I've made using a drawing program, made a custom cipher that on as if it was a wall art, but it's a sprite so it can sense things. Under the code for this sprite here, or this, what looks like a image on the wall. I have when I receive start, I hide. So no matter what is going on, I want to make sure that each one hides until it's that game. So we can see that when I receive my Moy game, I hide. When I receive Rodriguez game, I hide. Because I push the B, I'm on the Baki game. When I receive Baki game, I'm going to show and set a variable to 0. This next game 1 is, you saw these little buttons pop up over here? For those buttons, I have a little bit more code here. When the sprite is clicked, so this one, when it's clicked, if it was touching the duck, this one has 2 sensors. It has to be clicked and touching the duck. Then it will ask a question and wait, and only then, and that's part of this puzzle with the game. You know, you're not going to make a cryptography game just straightforward. So sometimes you need to have multi-touch going on. Then you're going to check their answer, change the score. You can do an if-else where you deduct from their score. Also, this variable, set it to 1. In this case, I had the variable set to 0 here. There are various things that I've done over time playing with that. And also you have if next game 2 is set to 1. And you have here in next game 1 is set to 1. So I have 2 different variables, 2 and 1. And what I'm looking for is to trigger on both of those. So I wanted to sense if both of these puzzles had been solved. And this is how I did it. If they got the answer correct, I asked a question. If they got the answer correct, I changed the score and I set a variable to basically 1 I use for true and 0 I use for false. I have 2 variables for this game, 1 and 2. You make those under the variable. I just made a variable, next game. So you click and you make your variable. The thing. And if you, in this case, I had made next game 1 and next game 2, but I have something, and you can see something is now showing. So I can turn it off. And also, because I didn't want this one, I can delete it. I already have the variables I need. So I can set them to values. I get the first puzzle right. I check and see if the second puzzle is also right. If the second puzzle is also right, I'm going to switch to another game. If the second puzzle is not already right, then I just stay on this game. Also, I can hide it once they get the puzzle right, so it's there or not, and I can show that red ball. So this is when this puzzle was solved, I chose to do these things. You can choose to move, you can choose to make a sound, you can choose to make things visible or invisible. And in the case of broadcasting, this is when I can change something on another sprite. So I broadcast something. I named it red ball so that I could keep track of all these variables I was doing. I named things my name of my games. Another thing you might want to know is if it's taking and things aren't going right, sometimes you should add weights. Troubleshoot by adding weights. Troubleshoot by doing things like save now. I've just done that here. These will help you as the game gets a little more complicated. Sometimes the memory has to be refreshed, or sometimes the computer goes too quickly and you'll have some trouble and you think something's wrong, but really it's not. So try those troubleshooting tips. This is really all this is if and else. And broadcast. Let's look at the red ball broadcast. Under one of the red balls, I have when I receive red ball, show. When the flag is clicked, hide. I could also do when I receive exit or end, hide. To do that, I would go to events and I would say when I receive end, I would want to hide as under looks. So now when you receive the end, that ball will hide, that's the red ball. When I receive red ball, it's going to show. This one is very similar. You have the flag clicked. When you receive red ball 2, though, it will show. I'm going to go back to red ball 1, and I want this code to also go to red ball 2. See how it wiggled? Watch, I bring it over and it wiggled. Okay, now I'm going to click into red ball 2, and you'll see I have that code. So there's a way to duplicate the code, just like there was a way to, like, if I wanted to throw it away, I just bring it over here and throw it away. So the other thing I just wanted to show was on the encrypt and decrypt screen, which is you're looking for when the sprite is clicked, but we are on. For this one, we can check as we're testing around. You're looking for this one, we're looking for which one shows it's Moy Game. So to test this one, I can click the M, click over here and then click the M, and it'll switch to the Moy Game. I'm able to move and test all of my things here. So the sprites I would be looking at are these two sprites to test. We've already seen the hiding and making visible. Let's look at the code within this game. This game has two different buttons. One is to encrypt and the other is to decrypt. I've named them accordingly. So if we look at our costume, we can see I've named this encrypt button. It's very helpful to name these something that makes sense when you do the code. So we have encrypt and decrypt. Under the encrypt, we have some code, and we have all of those. What I'll do is we'll just zoom into this portion. I chose to make this one based on click. So the sprite was clicked, then I asked for a key and I waited. If the answer was correct, I had the binary here. If they figured out the binary and they got a 12, then they would say the encrypted message for 2 seconds, and then they would give them points. I see I forgot to give them points. I just should have had some more points. So I'll bring this over here, and the first thing I'll do is give them points. Change score, and we'll change it by 3. You can change it randomly to whatever you like. So we changed the score by 3 now. So when the sprite was clicked, I ask for the key. Remember, this is a good way to test here. And it gives me that. Also changed the score, and it broadcast yellow balls. The yellow ball showed up. It did something that you don't see, which is changing that next game 1 by 1. Remember, that was set to 0, initialized to 0 when it received that Moy Game. So now it is a 1. So now it's true that we have the first part of this puzzle. It's just going to sit there. It's just a variable. So it sits and waits with its value. Now, you have next game 1 by 1. Now, it's only 1 because it's been 0 to 1. This one has a little bit of a quirk to it. You would think it wouldn't work this way, but it does because I hide it. So if next game 1 is greater than 1, it'll hide it. So it can only be, can it be multiple times? Let's see if we've got an error here. Get rid of that one, grab this one instead, and let's change it to just equals 1. So we're going to pull that out and look here at the equal one and grab all this variable, change that to 1. In this case, it will have to have gone through having the answer correct. So that variable is correct, this variable be correct. Another way that you could do it is if they both equal 1, but in this case it's trapped into equal 1 there and equal 1 here. So if this equals 1 and this equals 1, so if they play this for a whole bunch of points, it won't equal 1. unless they go back and restart the game. We've got another trick there, I guess, and I'm going to leave it that way. So we'll play the game real quick, make sure everything works. Clicking over here, we are going to click on this one, and the key is 12. And wait a minute here, click on this one, the key is 12, and we can see the encryption, and both of them disappear. You go to the next one, you have a score. The only way they can do it is not by racking up a whole bunch of points, but by doing one, and then they'll get the points. Another thing that I have in that Moi game, I'll click over here and click M, is that if I click this and I guess the wrong answer, I did give them a hint, which is the same thing as the puzzle. So if I click it and I guess that it's 10, watch this part here. So I click 10 and I hit enter, and it tells them this as the hint. So the picture shows that was just an extra. So back in the code, this one looks like this. I'm going to zoom out a little bit so you can see all of it at once. And the key code looks like this when the sprite is pressed. In this case, I said chicken just because I thought I could say duck. Duck probably makes more sense. There we have. And we did the yellow ball too, and broadcast Rodriguez game, and checked for game 1 and game 1. And here it's game 1 and game 2. So we want to make sure that here we change game 2 to 1, and here we change game 1 and check 2. Here we did 2 and checked 1. Make sure that over here we have game 2 set to 0. Otherwise we can have some leftover problems. Make sure that you have your initialization. So this Moi game will initialize 2 here, and it'll initialize 1 here. You could do that in different ways, but that's just one way, and the way that I've done that. The only other code to really look at, each game is unique and has different things under it. The balls are visible and invisible, so each one of these games are a little different. You've got a code here where you're touching the duck, asking a question, and sensing for other things. Your 1 and 2 are that way here with this one, and you're broadcasting your eagle. This, you've got your code there, your chick for this game. Now this is encoded. Every bit of this is an XOR encode, and you're looking at changing the scores. These are if-elses. You have to follow through carefully to check which if and else is the same. And that's it. That's what this game code looks like. It'll be interesting to see what your games look like. Do I have my exit shown? The exit. Just switch background to end background. I could do something there where we have the score more, or you're a winner, whatever you would like. And that's the end of combining games and encryption.